So I first started coding when I was about 9 years old. I found some books and guides online. Slowly, I got my parents to sign me up for some local Pascal after school thing. And after learning Pascal, I decided it's not a real programming language, so I started learning by myself stuff like C programming, etc. And ever since, for like as long as I could remember, that was my thing. That was my pastime. I used to code everything. I have professionally shipped code in more than 15 different programming languages, maybe closer to 20, and I've always loved that. However, about 6, 7 years ago, I stopped writing code as a profession for a living. And this video is about what transitioned me there. Why? Because I think it might be an interesting story for some of you about shaping your own careers, about why you're doing what you're doing, and also for understanding a bit my work. By the way, if you're new here, hi, I'm Ben-Yosef. I'm a tech executive coach and consultant. I help people create teams that they're proud of leading. And this is actually a core part here. Let's quickly go over how I got to this point, because I think that the lessons here are critical to help you understand who you are and who you actually hire around you. So for the longest time, I thought that coding was what really mattered. For so long, I actually got this big kick out of learning another framework, another design pattern, another tool, another language. I love that. Like I had all the books. I remember the first time I did coding as a profession, we had like a local library there, and I would just go after reading book after book after book. No one even understood why I was reading those old books we had there, but I loved that. And then I did the same, trying to find people globally to work with on open source projects, because I wanted to know more people, more ways of doing things. I was eager, I was hungry to learn more and more. And I got pretty damn good at it. After a few years later, I was doing freelance coding with a bunch of startups here. I actually, with these fingers, I've helped ship code probably over half a dozen companies that got acquired, became unicorns, etc. So I actually got to do some very, very amazing stuff. Like I wrote single-handedly projects that got to hundreds of thousands of users within a couple of weeks, that got to millions of users within a couple of months. These are things that I'm very, very proud of. And I know that for many companies weren't easily accessible without having an expert coder there. Okay, I'm not tooting my own horn too much here. Just want you to realize, I was good. Okay, I was pretty good at what I was doing. That naturally meant, but to me, it was also so very much rewarding. However, as this freelancing business grew, I noticed a couple of things. First was that it doesn't matter how good I was at shipping if the company was not asking me to ship the right things. It didn't really matter. Okay, I got paid, whoop-de-doo. I mean, that's nice. But I hated working on things and later seeing that they got nowhere, that nothing material happened out of that they didn't have any success, that the users never liked it or never even see it. And when that was happening, I started noticing in me this change. And maybe it was there all along, but I was just lucky enough to work on important things at the beginning of my career. But I started seeing that I no longer cared solely about the code and about the clever solutions, but I wanted to see the actual results. And I always talk about the product and tech continuum. You have engineers who care only about the tech, about the code, about the clean code, about the programming language, etc. And there are those who don't care if this is assembly and we're doing COBOL, if we're getting actual results done, if the users love us, if the company is getting more and more successful. And I realized that I was actually leaning more towards the product end of the spectrum, and realizing that I was there, and yet even when I and my colleagues were amazing coders and could ship what we were asked, sometimes you could have amazing engineers, amazing code, and get nowhere because the business was not there, or because the engineering organization was not managed well. So people were doing what they were told to do, but they weren't connected enough to the business to actually understand what needs to be done. They were making a bunch of nano decisions that we do all day long as engineers, because product cannot spoon feed you every little micro decision. We're making all of those decisions wrong because we were not connected to the actual business, or people were getting burned out because they didn't understand the meaning and the context of what they were doing. All of those got me to feel really, really bad about essentially doing good work, getting paid really well, but I was not feeling like I was getting anything. And along that, as that was happening, I started noticing another pattern. As me and my peer, we were doing these freelance gigs, a lot of times we used to just chat with the CTO, with the co-founders, with executives in the company. Sometimes we had lunch together, etc. Just for fun, nothing special. We didn't have an agenda. We're just chatting. And I noticed that what we were picking up on as external entities was actually making them scratch their heads and go like, oh, really? Oh, you see other people doing that? Or, oh, you realize that this is not actually a good thing, or you've seen this happen before and you can tell that a lot of times it ends up badly. And I noticed that, while I was getting paid the hourly billing stuff for the coding, I noticed that those conversations often had even more impact. And I knew that there was just a limit to what I could do coding. And again, I love coding. There was a limit to the impact I could have there in that constellation. And when I started talking to my clients about their organizations, about what they want to achieve, about how they shape their organizations, all of a sudden, other things became possible. We could do things that actually got results done, even if the code was no longer amazing, even if they could no longer benefit from my amazing coding skills, they were getting more success because for most companies, at the 90th percentile, it no longer really matters how perfect the code is. It needs to be good enough. It needs to be pretty darn good if we want to get a real moat, or we're going to be faster than our competitors, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be world-class, every little thing. What you do want is a bunch of world-class engineers who know how to collaborate together, who know what the goal ought to be, so they aim at that. They don't aim at clever code and clever solutions. And for me, this wasn't like one day I woke up and I realized, okay, I'm no longer going to be touching code. But I started noticing that. And then I said yes when someone asked me to have more of an advisory sort of role in one of my clients. And I did that and slowly transitioned from 100% of my time coding to none over a period of a couple of years. And I just got hooked on that impact. And I think I just essentially moved all the way to the edge of the product tech continuum, focusing solely on the product. For me now, the product is the teams I work with, but what gets me jazzed is helping them deliver. And the reason I'm sharing it is because I've been having conversations lately with tech executives who don't really know their raison d'etre. They don't know why they're doing what they're doing. They don't know how to choose what to do. What you need to realize is that if you never take a second and think, why am I doing what I'm doing? What's my success? What makes me feel good about what I'm doing or not? You're not likely to get there. For me, this only happened because I realized the change of energy, the change of, at the end of the day, how I was feeling when I had those interactions where it had the impact on the company, and contrasting that with those days where maybe I was coding like mad. I was shipping code like no one else before, but it was like shipping code into dev null. I wasn't getting anything happening, and that really sucked the energy out of me. And you have to be mindful of what works for you and what you want to achieve as well. In my work, I noticed that so many of the leaders I work with are just going along on autopilot. They never take a second to say, okay, I've achieved whatever I want to achieve, or maybe not. I've been doing this for a year now or two, whatever. What's next? What am I aiming for? What do I actually want to achieve? If you don't have a goal, you're just floating there. You're just going where the wind takes you. And actual leadership is about leading a path. You cannot be a leader if you don't even know where you yourself want to end up, where you want to go. You have to be in charge. And now I'm recording this in December. I think December is like sort of the month where a lot of us are more prone to be mindful and do some introspection. I think this is a perfect occasion to stop and think, what would you like to be doing and changing in your work in 2026, or if you're watching this later, whatever year it is. I think that if you don't take the time to think what you're going to do, you might never realize that you have more options. I could have just continued coding and, again, making good living, being okay as an engineer, like feeling okay, but not achieving the things that actually fill me up like I'm doing today. And that won't happen for you if you just continue on your path as a VP of engineering, not realizing that maybe you actually don't enjoy managing people and you get more energy being the equivalent of the chief architect. Maybe you actually really enjoy it and you need to find a way to create an organization around you that lets you focus on those things that you actually like more, where you get more impact. Maybe you need to be working towards becoming a CEO, like I'm seeing some of my clients doing recently. Whatever it is, those realizations often don't happen if you don't take the time to process things and think about them, and they will take a lot more time to manifest if you never take a second and think, okay, this is what I want to achieve. This is where I'm headed. This is what my current goal is. All this to say that, yeah, I stopped coding, but I'm still one of the cool guys, cool nerdy guys, and I think that you can allow yourself to stop doing things that you've been doing for so many years if that's the right thing for you. What got you here won't necessarily get you there, and that's fine. It's fine to realize that maybe you want to be more of a manager. Maybe it's fine to realize that after years you don't enjoy being a manager. Maybe you want to work more in bigger companies, smaller companies, but those are the things that you owe to yourself to sit down and think and process. Because otherwise, life's just gonna keep on driving by and you're gonna be missing a lot of the exits that you could take towards a better destination and having a better journey along the way. Okay, I'm sorry this is a bit of a touchy-feely video this time, but that's what I felt like sharing with you all. I hope I at least got one of you to think differently. If you have any questions, any comments, any ideas, I'd really love to hear. Either in the comments below or in my email directly. If you want to do it privately, my email is always in the video description. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you, and I'll see you here in the next video. Ciao.